All right. All right, so everyone, welcome to the June 19th member or meeting of the Fairfield Traffic Authority Commission, our regular meeting for the month of June 2025. So we'll go right to item number 1, which is the call to order in the roll call. Megan.
Yes, Chief of Police here.
Here.
Police Chief Designee, which is Hector, here. Police, Kevin is here. Neva is here. Emmeline is here. Bill is here. Anthony is here. Okay, and we are full body, and then we have some alternates. Mike is here as well as an alternate, and Jeff is
here
as an alternate.
Fantastic.
So all the members, and Frank is here too. Frank.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So hey, just on that topic, my apologies for not knowing all of the rules of alternates and how to appoint alternates at that previous meeting. I've just never been on a committee that did that. I've gotten some counsel in the meantime. I am now well suited to entertain alternates and how they come onto the board or come onto a meeting for voting for that particular item. And what I've been advised by a few folks is to just kind of create kind of a rotation and go from there. So, and I've been advised just to do it alphabetically for no other reason. So in that rotation, Mike would be 1, Jeff would be 2, and we'll just toggle back and forth as needed, whether one of them is needed or both of you guys are needed at a particular meeting, and just help me keep track of who's who and who's up next. So we have that ironed out. Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
And your patience. Okay, item 2, the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like us to please stand to the pledge, and I'd like to ask Chief Calamaris if you'd please lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, which is to consider and act upon the May 15th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second by somebody?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion, changes to the minutes from the May meeting?
No.
All right, now I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? I was not here, so I will abstain. So that motion passes 6-0-1. Okay, moving right along. I can get to the right page here.
That's a fifth item now. We finished 3 items.
Oh, yeah, all right, so we're going to go to item 5 on the agenda, which is our very next item. And this is a public hearing on the proposed parking rules and regulations that are before our commission for review and consideration. So this item is for a public hearing on the changes. Previously, we sent you both the old one with the red line and the proposed changes by the administration. So hopefully you've had a chance to review those. Town Attorney Phil Pierce is here to walk us through a presentation on what was done and why. And then, of course, we are here in public session for questions and comments from the public. Attorney Pierce?
Sure. So I think as everyone knows, the parking authority is dissolved, effective as of July 1. The town is not going to have a parking division, which would be a different body that could promulgate regulations. So the town will have a parking department. And without a parking division, the body with authority to promulgate regulations is the traffic authority. So as an example, that's what West Hartford does. They don't have a parking authority. They have their LTA, who's their town manager, promulgate regulations and rules. So what we did is we took the existing parking authority rules, which had not been updated in substantially updated in quite some time, and mostly did cleanup changes and tried to simplify some of the language. Emmeline and I just met with, there was one comment that came through about a reference to the website, which I've deleted and updated revision. There are, Emmeline and I just met with an employee in the parking department, and the regulations, the existing regulations, and we left this in, contemplated tags as how they're noted, and the tags no longer exist. They don't use those, so we changed that because it's now license plate readers. And the regs called for charges for replacement permits. They don't do that either, so we've taken that out. That's really it. We did not try to do substantive edits except where needed to clarify things. Like, for example, it wasn't, the zones weren't identified. We added the zones, we added the rates and things, which are not changing. We just took those existing rates that the parking authority had. So I'm happy to, the next item is also discussion among the authority, so we can have discussion then as well. This right now is noticed for a public hearing. The reason that's noticed for a public hearing is that under the charter, when a body has the authority to promulgate regulations, there has to be a public hearing. So this is the process that, other bodies like the WPCA and solid waste have followed, but they've had to promulgate regulations or amend their regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. So this item is a public hearing, so the next part of this item is to open it up to the public, either present or online, for comments, for questions, for concerns, for us to either answer now or to contemplate in advance of our subsequent meeting where we will vote on this, which will not be tonight. It'll be, we can talk about that under new business, if you would. So do we have any members of the public present, either online or here? We do not, to talk about this. Okay. So hearing none, I can close the public comment section discussion on this, and we can move on to item 6, okay, which is a discussion on this. It's for us to talk about what questions we might have of the administration, of our town attorney regarding the regulations. And I think the one comment I would make is, I spoke to a few folks about this item along the way. There's a big picture item that we've moved the parking authority from an outside entity to inside the budget. And certainly that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss our slice of it, which is the approval of these regulations, which are a part of the larger project. But the floor is open for anyone that has a comment, a question, a concern.
About the screen.
Might be a question.
That's a question.
Oh, Captain has.
Captain.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sorry I could not be there today. So I have a question regarding the parking regulations that we have before us. In one of the drafts I reviewed, there was a mention about a specific vendor in the paperwork, and I had questions regarding whether that needed to be included or not. And the reason I'm asking that is that we are not certain going forward if we're going to utilize the services of that vendor. And the vendor I'm speaking about is Passport Parking.
Yeah, so that was an excellent comment. The chair passed that along to me. I sent him back an update that removes that. I don't think we need to refer to the specific vendor, so that was a good comment.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so it's now removed specifically to generic. Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Captain. Anything else, Captain? Anyone else online? Anyone else at the table?
I do have one.
Sure.
I remember working with the parking authority when they had to do improvements to the train station, the interior of the building, or even when we needed their approval for doing pervious asphalt at the parking lot. So like, who would handle that? Is that an interior, or is that's not going to be the legal traffic authority, is it, or?
No, that's
Okay.
the department handles that. Think about this, the process for the regulations, think about this as, how Parks and Rec works as an example, how Parks and Rec makes regs, but they're not, the Parks and Rec employees run the department. So you're not, this board is not going to be, voting on those types of things. We just need.
Parking department?
Yeah.
Okay.
Operationally, it's not that, yeah. They're going to operationally run the department. These are just the rules that govern, parking.
I have a question. So this one is strictly for like an enforcement, right? Not confusing with the engineering where we are voting on, hey, this parking should be 25 feet away from the intersection. So parking authority is not looking into that kind of details.
These rules apply to those specific lots,
Okay.
and it's about, what days you can park there, what permits exist in which zones. So it's not related to other rules that the town may establish for parking at other sites. Now that this is being brought into the town, the town may recognize other operational things that they want to change about these regs. We can change them too. I mean, we just have to go through this process again to amend them. If there's something that comes up that you see that you want changed.
So in general, the lots we're talking about are the main train station, Fairfield Center, right?
It's listed
I
out.
just wanted to-
Yeah, Fairfield Center, Mill Plain, Southport Station, and the Trinity Church lot, and they each have.
The Mill Plain, that was the one I wanted,
Yeah,
I
so it
wanted to
doesn't
make sure
apply
that
to-
was included.
So the rules
That's-
don't
yeah.
apply to parking anywhere else in the town.
Oh, okay. So that stays
Just those,
alone.
just those
Yep.
spots.
So
yeah.
the enforcement still goes to the police department when somebody is parking in the because I'm talking in terms of our engineering where bicyclists are conflicting with the on-street parking.
This doesn't change anything about that. This is just the body with authority to regulate and set the fees for lots where, these lots is now gonna be this body, without a parking authority. So that's what this is about. It doesn't change any of the other aspects of parking in the town.
Thank you.
Makes sense? So we have a little, oh,
Hey, has there been any, parking is obviously a broad topic in town, and it's something we hear about really in every application of zoning. It's a constant, traffic and parking are the two biggest issues in town that we hear about. Has there been consideration to have this authority look at parking comprehensively for the town, including beach parking? We've got obviously a lot of issues with parking in with students. This group addresses parking. Has there been any thought to looking at having this authority look at parking comprehensively?
I guess not really a question for me.
I sent some thoughts about a parking advisory committee. Originally, I was thinking about, asking this commission whether that would be appropriate. I believe it was you, Jeff, who thought that might be too much to start with, but I was thinking of having a separate advisory committee on parking and putting out the call for like town planners and parking technology people, of which I've found one already. So, yeah.
Because it's every application we get, especially anything that's more than a single family.
that's right.
It's such a nerve in the town, and if people were to see action occurring, it would be reassuring, because right now, we get these multifamilies in, and people, it's one of the main reasons people get upset.
I think people need to see technology in action that's going to make parking easier before they really understand what it means to get rid of parking minimums.
Well, it's even more than that. It's just like we put, for our TPZ applications, our responsibility is just the boundaries of the property. It doesn't affect the adjacent property. I mean, we have no authority over the adjacent properties at all. So, like, the one at Gruel Britannia, for example, on Fairfield Place, it would be helpful if we could say to them, we're going to be looking at the entire neighborhood. We're going to be looking at the traffic flow, we're going to be looking at the parking. Right now, there's no mechanism to do that. And it's we really look inept as a community. We say, well, we only can look at the area. That's our job, to look at the area right around the building, and trust us, it's not going to be an issue. It's just, we look inept as a community, as town officials, because we say we don't have a mechanism to address this right now.
I think we take it under advisement with the first selectman's office and follow up on Bill's comments to see where, if it makes sense for there to be a central authority for this larger picture issue. It sounds like a pretty heavy lift for whoever's going to get it. whether it falls here or elsewhere or some combination of people or divisions or commissions. So I think that's what I would recommend at the moment, is to recognize it as a big picture topic that affects all these individual projects, affects things that are happening on this commission today, and take a stab at trying to find out what the best answer is through technology and through professional leadership that we have. It's a good point.
I'm just raising it as an issue. I don't
Yeah.
have an answer, but I think by putting this parking authority in place, we're inching towards an answer that we never had before. Pardon?
Yeah.
It's a parking department.
Well, it is,
Yeah, but it is, the idea, I think part of it is to, by bringing it into the town can
Yeah.
plan more comprehensively,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and I think we need to kind of walk before we run with this new department. But I think it sounds like it could be a logical expansion of the duties of that department, give or take resources, give or take what we have, and give or take input from First Selectman Gerber and everyone else involved.
Yeah, there's also legal ramifications on some of this. I remember on Pansy, for the traffic, zoning, I think wanted to make the applicant do something, and then the state came back and said, no, you only have a preview, or I mean, a purview of this certain area. So they kind of limited that.
Sure.
And then, whether you take away or provide parking, obviously residents have a major say in it, but so do users. Or do they just go from one area to the other? And I know there's been a couple of lawsuits. Commercial establishments thought it was taken away parking, so
Yeah.
it's a very
We've
complicated.
seen dribs and drabs of that at Police Commission over the
Right.
years, but it's more of a case by case than a larger.
Exactly.
A larger picture solution or problem.
That's where Bill's idea,
Yeah, I think it makes good sense. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Do you have anything else on the parking authority regulations that you wanted to weigh in on that we're just discussing as the commission?
No, not on these.
On the regs?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we've had our public forum, and we've had discussion amongst the board under item 6. Is there any other discussion on the changes to the?
Just curiosity.
Yes, ma'am.
Why is it limited to one parking spot per household? Is there some history with that?
That is how the parking authority has traditionally administered it.
And it probably goes back to the fact that there used to be, 3.5-year wait lists.
Yeah.
And now there's no wait list. So, I think that in our conversation with one of the staff people, they said they are doing multiple permits per household, but they're doing it at their discretion.
And there's also, but only one car. I think.
Yeah.
So you can't have 2 cars. It's like, I don't know.
How would that work?
I didn't understand it, but.
Very quick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think,
Well, how could they issue it? How could they issue multiple? The rules say you can only have one, but notwithstanding that, why one?
License plate reader probably picks it up.
Yeah, I understand how you do it. I mean, if you have,
I forget what she called
say,
it.
one car, but
Yeah.
2 people, I mean,
you can change cars for that quote one
so
spot.
you have multiple license plates onto that one permit.
I think that that's what
Yeah,
the concept was. So it's a good question. I think, the idea here was to substantively change as little as possible to get regs in place. And then as the administration starts to identify issues like that, we'll
Yeah,
probably come back with an update.
Yeah, I mean, the
on
old
regs.
permit would have multiple license numbers on it.
Correct.
But you would just switch it as you use different
I
cars.
think you
and
just
then-
use the app to
There
show
you
who's
would.
parking.
Yeah.
The back office, you can
Yeah,
change what plates active.
Yeah, I'm just asking, I mean, if you got
it's like easy pass,
2
right?
people going in
Right.
and one can park and one's gonna do daily or household. I mean, I don't know if that's fair when the lots are underutilized
So-
at this point.
As I understand it, I think that however they've done it, they've been able to do that they don't get too much demand for that.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
think they were able to do it for like 4 households or something like that, based on our conversation.
They probably should have,
Yeah.
they probably should have that authority in here. For what it's worth.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're doing it.
I think,
I'm sorry.
So especially if they're doing it.
Well, if they're doing it, somebody should kind of CYA it. You know?
yeah, I think, so, I didn't want to create a new reg for this household permit thing without having, like, the town start to understand how they're gonna apply it. So
Right.
my expectation is that if that is something that the department's going to be doing, we would come back on a new reg.
Yeah.
In addition to the regs.
Right, which makes sense.
But wholesale drafting a reg now, a new reg, where, the town's not been involved in administering that, process or
Understanding
understanding
what
what it would look like,
Yeah.
I didn't really want to do that.
Right. Which makes sense, and we had a timeline here. Our goal is to get both of these meetings in prior to July 1st to help support and facilitate this transfer from independent to the operating budget. But Mike's point is great, because it is this authority that will govern this document going forward, as I understand it. If we decide to do more wholesale changes that are substantive, and we need to review these regulations again, it would be this commission that does the review work, the coordination with the town, with town departments. Maybe we form a committee as part of this commission to work with the appropriate folks to understand what these other additional, more substantive changes might be, and then we come back to the table. So, good discussion. Thank you.
But we can't vote on it tonight, is that?
No, I think
Okay.
you guys need to have a special meeting.
Okay. Yeah, it's not quite before us, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So anything else under item 6, under our discussion on the proposed changes to the regulations that are before us? Black line, red line. Okay. So we will have a follow-up meeting. Maybe we'll talk about that now instead of waiting until item 12. So we do have to have another meeting of this commission prior to July 1. It can be a one-item meeting, it can be a Zoom, it's just for us to reconvene. We've already had our public hearing, for us to reconvene, and if anything substantive happens between now and then, we can address it at that meeting. And for us to vote on the document that's before us. So sometime next week would work, I'm sorry.
We need 24 hours notice for
Yeah,
this.
it's just regular notice. You'll notice that today's agenda went out like 7 or 8 days ago. We had to fall between the 5 and the 10-day window for a public hearing. That's why today's agenda went out. I think it was
That's
last
the
Friday.
charter requirements, you're right, separate from FOIA, but this next meeting is.
Just a regular special meeting. So are there any days that are good or bad for anyone here next week to, whether we meet in person, whether we do it at lunchtime, whether we do it at 4 o'clock? Any initial thoughts, or do you want to give it some thought and we can chat about it later in the meeting?
I know I'm unavailable next week.
You're out next week? All right.
Tuesday, Wednesday are bad for me.
Or bad?
Yeah.
Okay. Tuesday and Wednesday. Monday's kind of impractical because we don't have much time to get an agenda put together and notice. That pushes us to Thursday. Thursday, I'm good during the day. I have a police commission meeting at night, right, next Thursday?
Yes, sir.
So if we did it early, I could do it.
Can
We
do
start at
Thursday?
4:30?
We do, sir.
I could do 3:30 or something, or I
Can we
could do lunch.
Thursday lunchtime?
I could do
Is
lunchtime.
that okay, like 12 to 1? Can we do Thursday, 12 to 1?
As long as there's a Zoom link.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can
As long as
do,
it's a Zoom link?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can do 12 to 1.
You want to do like a 12 o'clock next Thursday? What's that, the 26th?
So it's-
And I think we should only take up the one item so that we don't extend the meeting. If something comes up that's crazy between now and Tuesday, okay, but otherwise I would just do the one item meeting, expecting it to not last overly long. Thursday, 12 o'clock?
Yeah.
Any naysayers? All right, let's give it a shot. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we can move on to item 7, to hear, consider, and act upon the proposed diagonal diverter at the intersection of Kings Highway and Kings Drive and Kings Lane. I'll turn it over to Megan.
That's a bill to talk about.
The bill, excuse me.
That's all right. This, we're looking right now for an approval to do a demonstration project. The diagonal diverter idea was based on a meeting that we had about 4 or 5 months ago with the neighborhood. They could not come to a consensus. Kings Drive and Kings Lane off of Route 1 in the Southport area there. The Ukrainian Club and a couple of members of Kings Drive, they were opposed to closing it off, making Kings Lane a dead end. There were some neighbors that were opposed to speed humps or speed tables. The Ukrainian Club wanted to make sure they had the best access that they could, the easiest access, so that the diversion basically would allow the Ukrainian Club to continue to use Kings Lane and as an in and out access for their club. The office building that's there would their access really wouldn't change too much, and then they can still get to Route 1. And then the Kings Drive people, they would have to, in one direction, they'd be fine with no issues, but in the other directions, the diverter basically would eliminate cut-through traffic, which is what most of the people who live on Kings Drive were opposing. We had done some traffic counts and found that there were several hundred vehicles. If I recall, I think the number was almost 300 or 400 in a 2-hour period that cut through that neighborhood. So with the diversion, we've had at least preliminary talks with the fire department on that aspect. So we would set up a demonstration and then find out, which I think is the best way to do it, because anytime you'd be diverting some of the traffic, we want to make sure that there's no overall impact on other roadways. And the fact also that even if we approve this, most likely it will involve signs telling people on Route 1 that Kings Lane is no longer open to through traffic. And so therefore, we would need state approval as well.
Bill, would you mind going up there and showing us the flows, the traffic, helping everyone fully understand?
So if the Ukrainian Club is over here, okay, and then we'll just say the bottom of the screen right here is Route 1. And so one of the original proposals was to completely, block this off. And by doing that, the Ukrainian Club thought that many of their visitors and renters of the hall come from different areas of the state, and they're not familiar with that. So they really wanted to keep Kings Lane open. Kings Drive, as I said, the neighborhood, we're really worried about a lot of cut-through traffic, especially when 95 gets backed up. So by doing this, if you wanted to get to the Ukrainian Club, you would come here, there's a stop sign, you would have to look both ways, you'd come around, get in, and then if you had to leave the Ukrainian Club, you'd be forced to come this way and go out to Route 1. For the people on Kings Drive, if you live, say, at this house over here, you would come in and out, only using Kings Drive. If for some reason, and we tried to think about it, an Amazon truck or somebody came into Kings Drive, we didn't want to make them stuck. There's not enough room for a cul-de-sac here. There's a new development, I think, going like right over here as well. Was it 10 units or something like that, or 20? Yeah. 10 units. So if somebody got, quote, stuck on Kings Drive, they could come here, use the turnaround, and then they would have to come out this way. So they wouldn't, quote, get stuck. Sure.
So what is that constructed of exactly? Like what is a diverter consist of?
There's a couple of different ways. I mean, the simplest way, you could use a Jersey barrier, okay? You could use a small, almost like a center line hardening, or like a rubber strip, almost like a speed hump, but instead of going perpendicular to the roadway, you kind of go along where the blue rectangle is, and then you could put flexible bollards up so that if emergency vehicles came in that way, they could run over the bollards. But most people's vehicles, they wouldn't want to, dent their cars, so to speak. And so right now, that's the best approach, I think, to where, as I said, it's really a split neighborhood. And I think this satisfies the neighborhood. I have not we briefly discussed some of the options, and this was one, but not visually. I don't think the neighborhood. So even with this approval, I will go and meet with the neighborhood again to go over, and that's why I didn't go for a full approval yet. I wanted to do a demonstration, and again, to find out if this would work. How long the demonstration is really depends. I'm going to say 1 to 3 months or so. I want to obviously get a little bit of school time in if we had to, but if it's working fantastically after 1 month, why delay it?
So you're asking us to approve the
A demonstration, much like we did last week.
For a fixed
Or
period
last
of
month,
time
that's right.
versus something on a more permanent
Right,
basis.
right.
What's the line of sight to the right there? If you're coming up Kings
From here,
No, when you're coming up,
From here?
yeah, when you're coming up, how do you
Here.
see to the right?
well, again, this, if it's, there's bollards, it'd be bollards like every 4 feet. They'd only be like 28 inches high. So for a driver, it should be just over their line of sight. So they'd be able to see, there's enough space in between. And again, there's nothing saying that they can't, stop here and then roll and just make sure. Another option, we could have, I was thinking of putting a stop sign here as well, which we could do. But then my fear is they stop there, oh, let me, snake around and go around,
It's like we stop coming from the right, I think.
Stop coming from the right this way.
When you're on your right-hand side coming, what is that, Kings Drive?
Kings Drive.
If you're traveling to the left, I just don't know how you yield at that
You
point.
can't go this way.
No, I know, but you can go straight.
Yeah, you go straight.
So what would prevent the two cars from colliding right at that?
Well, this one has stop control, and then, as I said, they have the right of way. And I mean, it's shown here, there's a couple of bollards, and we put more here, and they would be able to see.
I
And again, the speeds here were 23 miles per hour, so, and because of the, visually here, you can provide a warning sign, they would be able to see that diverter as well. I don't know why somebody here would be going very fast, I mean, they're going, it's only a turnaround.
In a hurry to go to the
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
so, and as I said, at 23 miles per hour, the sight distance is significantly less than, say, if you were doing 35 miles per hour, so.
I was going to ask about what you mentioned in terms of both from the post road leading up to the diverter and also from the east along Kings Drive heading towards the diverter. Do we need to approve any, whether it's temporary then leading to permanent warning signage that indicates that it's a limited access roadway? Or I don't know what the MU, you have to help me with this, Megan.
Yeah.
MU.
MUTCD, yeah.
Whatever the appropriate signage is that would be
Yes,
recommended?
right. It would have to meet MUTCD, or we would need an exemption for a special sign, and say no through traffic, Kings Drive, no through traffic.
I don't know whether it's like local.
I didn't want to say dead end per se,
Right.
But how far does that street go in that direction?
For this one here,
Yeah.
here's the office building, and then immediately after, it's a cul-de-sac.
Turnaround.
Right.
So it's 50 yards? 100 yards?
50 yards would be 150, so yeah, 150, 200 feet, yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
It's really bad.
No, I don't dispute it, I just think you could get nailed.
It just feels awkward. I think if I'm
I don't know.
traveling,
Well,
lack of a
technical
The farmer's
term.
point is the person turning left.
Right.
Yeah, I think it should be like a yield sign or.
I mean, but the point of this one, the whole point of this is that we're trying to stop traffic from going to the right, because they're coming from the post road
Yes.
Yeah.
up here and going to the right.
Right.
Not many people are coming down Kings Drive to the Ukrainian Club, 40. So it should be awkward.
No, it's like 400, it's 400 cars an hour,
And,
peak hour are going right.
Going,
Yeah,
Well, I think
400 cars,
going-
based on the traffic
going,
study
oh,
for the
yeah.
10 unit.
No,
yeah.
but 40 coming
West.
opposite direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 400 versus 40.
Right.
Yeah, I hear you.
10 against 1. According to the neighbors, what's
So if you put
happening
that in,
is
those
they come in
lines are
here,
gonna go
Ray
way down.
sends them, they blow through the stop sign, we have video of that, big time. They whip through and then they go through that way and same thing in reverse. They're strictly using it as a shortcut rather than taking Route 1. The neighbors were very concerned, there's no sidewalks, it's a relatively narrow road with a twist.
Can you get a higher perspective on, is this just a photo or is this a map?
This is an aerial,
You can't step out a bit, can you?
but
I can.
the street view might be able to show you as well.
So what's the feasibility of using a Jersey barrier there?
Yep.
Hey, Bill,
Sure.
Chief has
I
a,
don't want to get on.
What's the feasibility of using a Jersey barrier there instead of the bollards?
We could use a Jersey barrier there, that would.
We're trying to get to
certainly
exit
make it
20
a lot more
north.
almost permanent, outside of the fact that.
Trying to get to the Bronson Road exit northbound, right?
But the
Okay.
fire department wasn't quite sure. That's why we were trying to do the temporary, see if
I can see that now, yeah.
how many calls they might have got in a month.
I have a second question.
Sure.
Would that be able to be mounted by a oversized vehicle? Your proposed
Oh, if we
plan.
did the Jersey barrier, they would, no.
Your proposed
Oh,
plan.
yeah, they would just drive over it. It would be, the shopping centers, they have the small rubberized speed bumps, and then they'd have the bollards on it, so.
What's the initial reaction from the neighbors on this? Or have,
On this proposal, as I said, they couldn't agree on anything yet, and this one here, based on their comments, I feel that this is the best plan. It's not, there's no plan that's gonna be 100% perfect on this. I mean, there is always a slight chance that you get a small smart car or whatever, and they can, whip around or
Whip around
whatever.
there.
Or somebody drives through and they, for some reason, I don't think it's gonna happen, but they'll do it once. But they'll come here, turn around and come, and I doubt that would be quicker than if they had just done the right-hand turn like they're supposed to. But it was a way of trying to do it without dead-ending or cutting off the street.
or extra stop signs or?
Right, and all that. But with stop signs for this location, they're not working at all. The people, because the volume on Kings Drive is so low, literally 3 out of 4 cars just blow by the stop signs.
Is there an issue with trees blocking that stop sign from being seen by folks, or are they just going through it?
From the video that I saw, they were just going through. Perhaps in the summer, there might be some
Some
overgrowth.
visibility issues?
Yeah, I mean, there's other options, if for some reason this doesn't get approved or it doesn't come to the satisfaction of what we want, you could put stop ahead, you could put the street reflector, the post reflector, highlight the stop bar, I don't know when this was taken.
That's a good shot there, thanks, Mike.
So can I ask a question? So if we approve this as a demonstration project, then we can maybe go to whatever that secondary, if it goes to full installation, maybe then we can look at something that would be either provide the access that people feel that's needed for emergency vehicles, once you kind of get the lay of the land based on the demonstration project.
Okay.
Or you could even go to something that might be more permanent, more decorative, but we could make that decision.
Providing the
So
same.
what you're saying
It
is
could
we
even
would
be
make
like
that
a gate,
decision.
like they have at, some of the gates where
Yeah.
they had a hurry, they unlock it and then they just swing it open, but.
Anthony?
Yeah, just the only other concern that I would have, I like the design, but if I am one of the neighbors that lives on Kings Drive, now I'm probably upset that I can't cut through to actually get to my house, and now we've created more of an issue down the post road where, because they can't turn left onto Mill Hill Road if I remember correctly. I think that's.
They have to go down
They
by
have to
the
go
old South
further.
Brook
Yeah, you
Brewery,
have to
or they
make
go
that-
around the.
That's right, they got to do that
That's
load
right.
time, yeah.
And that was one of the reasons with the demonstration, rather than outright, because
Right.
like anything else, you block off, or even if, let's just say we put in, 10 speed humps and then everybody goes the other direction or the next parallel road, there's always a cause and effect with any of this stuff. And what we're hoping for is it spreads out, Route 1 should be able to handle it. And with only one lane, because they have a road diet proposal for Route 1, there's only going to be now 2 lanes to cross rather than 4.
All right, let me go to Frank. Let me go to Frank, then I'm going to go to Hector.
Thank you. So, yeah, just my thoughts are, one, you mentioned it, like, you need the advanced signage to
Yes.
tell people so they're not getting stuck down there. My opinion, I would do like the flexible bollards or posts first, because the Jersey barrier, we don't want someone getting into it, at least those are breakaway. And then just, my other last thought was just anything you can do advance of putting it out there so people know, whether it's a, press release or I don't know if you have VMS boards or something, just like starting this day, no through traffic, just so people know. So you just try to limit the amount of people who are gonna turn down there and stuck in.
Police department has the message board sign, obviously the first selectman has his newsletter, there's a website with traffic calming stuff. We'll meet with the neighbors before we ever even do this. And then we could even have a couple of like construction signs or something like that that's, says no through traffic, Kings Lane or detour or whatever, you know?
Okay, I'm going to go to the captain.
Hey, guys, thank you. It's exactly what Frank was saying. I think we need to make an educational effort to the public, whether it's through message board or utilize social media. And at the end of the day, guys, what we're looking at is a pilot project.
That's correct.
If it doesn't work, then we reassess and we figure out what can work. But this is the first step to getting us in that direction. And I just wanted to kind of align with what Emmeline was saying earlier, that, you know, we're just looking to put something there to see if it's going to work. And if it works, great. If we can improve it even more, let's do that. I think we owe that to our community. But to agree with Frank, we need to make an effort on the educational side of this entire project as well.
I totally agree.
Thank you, Captain. Good comments. Mr. Gerber?
Yeah, so what will we be measuring to determine how it if it works or not?
We would have eyewitness accounts. The neighbors are going to be there all the time, and so they'll certainly give us feedback, positive or negative. We could have a traffic volume, because obviously with this kind of diversion, we would expect the 400 to go back down to 40 or maybe 80, you know what I mean? But a significant decrease is what we would expect. And then we'd have to look, as someone brought up, the Route 1 and Mill Hill Terrace intersection, and just, again, make sure that, I mean, those intersections, there's two choices you can go to get that way. So we're hoping that it kind of gets spread out and it's not all in one intersection. And if that's the case, then I would say that's deemed acceptable. If we see, oh geez, you know, even if they were minor, 6 minor crashes have occurred at the intersection, while the last 8 months there were 0, then we'd have to say, all right, maybe we solved one problem, but maybe created another one. But I'm anticipating that this would cut down the volume, and obviously with the cut down of volume, I imagine in this case, there would be a cut down in speed. And it still will be 2 ways, because that was another thought, having it one way, but then we have all the same problems. And then when you make a road one way, sometimes when people know there's no traffic coming the other way, they have a tendency to speed up. So this, I thought, was the best approach. Again, it might not be 100%, but from all the neighbor and the Ukrainian Club comments and fire department comments, I thought that this was one that we might be able to, quote, please everyone, or at least tolerate the situation.
So just to follow up to Mr. Gerber's questions, what would the success criteria be to measure it? Is it counting cars? Is it some device? How would we measure it, to monitor it, to make a better decision or a different decision?
Well, again, we can do speed.
Other than talking to people, which I get, but.
Well, we can do speed and volume, because you always want to have, you don't want everything just being perception. So you have to have speed and volume data to support what we're doing. And then we'd look at crash data and any impacts. But yeah, those are the numerical things that we could do. The crashes, the volumes, the speeds.
Coordinate with the police traffic division to make sure that whatever needs to be in place is properly in place.
Oh, yeah, we always do, yes.
And my last question is, fire department, fire trucks and all that stuff, where are we with them with that? Are there any concerns?
No, there was no concern. I received an email from the fire chief. They're okay with
An email
this.
that confirms they've tested it, they're good with
I've
it?
tested it, they're good with this.
They were approving the concept.
Yeah,
is
they're
how I would
approving the
say.
concept.
But haven't we tripped up on that before? We approved the concept and then all of a sudden there was a measurement done subsequent? So
In fairness to that demonstration.
In fairness, and thank you for bringing that up, on this particular one, that was a consideration at an early juncture. I was in some of those conversations. There were some discussions about what turnaround would look like in that area with the Ukrainian Club at the end, and the fact that that is technically a street. They actually do have some options when it comes to it. Having this additional, method in and out if necessary is certainly a helpful element to it. But largely, they'll now just know that if they want to access by a certain they'll have to just come in and out from certain directions versus be able to, go through there. But you're dealing with a relatively low call volume location as well, so that certainly helps
helpful
it.
as well.
But physically getting them in and out and physically turning around at the locations they are definitely okay with.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
But thank you for that consideration, that's right.
No, thank you.
I believe Hector has a question.
That one's for you, Bill.
The project date to start the projected date to start the project, that would depend on after meeting the neighborhood. And so my guess is, and then we'd have to purchase a couple of the products that we were talking about, the bollards, which I think we already have.
We have it, we
yep.
have to go to BUS.
Yep, so I would say that most likely the project could start as early as July, if not August. And like I said, I'd want to have it carry in a little bit into the school year, just because some things we might not think. I remember one time, I thought I'd planned everything well, and then son of a gun, there was a kindergarten bus that went through, because I had a construction detour set up from 9 to 3, and I thought I had everything covered with the schools, and then there was a kindergarten bus. So you never know what will come up.
Jeff and Megan?
So three things. One, we heard the neighbors for, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 nights on this. This is a major problem, and there is a detailed traffic study that was done by the applicant. So this area's the baseline has been established, so there is something specific to measure against, and it'll be traffic counts.
Excellent.
So the neighbors they were literally weeping. I'm not kidding. There were people who were breaking down crying. This is gonna, this new 830G is gonna contribute more traffic. So this will, even though you never get 100%, the consensus is definitely here, and the inconvenience is minor. The cause of the traffic is absolutely diversion from 95. And so by slowing things down, you'll solve the Waze problem, likely to solve the Waze problem. So there is strong support. I know you never get 100%. Secondly, have you considered planters? Because planters are, some of the, Jersey barrier is pretty ugly. Flex posts aren't good looking, but planters, people can, put their geraniums in there or whatever. Customize them a little bit. I'm just asking if you consider that.
Yeah, we did, because when we did the original
Yeah.
block off completely dead-ended, we had planters in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And in our very initial discussions with the fire department, though, they were looking at something that they could maybe move out of the way rather quickly, so that's where the flexible bollards have come. However, after a month or 2 trial, they may say, you know what, we don't go that way anyway, we end up going this way or whatever, and then maybe that is something that we could look at.
It's good to think about.
But if they want quick access, then I don't think they'll approve it. So that's why, again, a demonstration rather than a permanent.
Did you have a third thing?
No.
Megan?
I have a question.
Sure.
Bill, can you mention the purpose of this project so we know what exactly the purpose is? Is it speed reduction? Is it traffic calming? Is what's the purpose?
Well, like Jeff had said, we had looked at this when we got some complaints from the Q Alert from the neighborhood. Then we had done some studies that showed, wow, it was a cut-through road. We didn't think it was, to quote, the typical speeding problem, because again, the speeds that we had gotten were about 25 miles per hour. Then it so happens that there just happened to be a development going on, where they did a detailed traffic report about a month or 2 after our initial study. And the good news is it was at least confirmed. They had similar volumes, and their speeds, I think, were 23 or 24. So we were all within the range. And again, those are what they call the 85th percentile speed. There's always an outlier speed in there. Someone's probably doing 50 somewhere there. And so it was really for safety and to eliminate what I would consider as an undue or extremely high cut-through rate.
It's a cut-through
Yeah,
volume.
yeah, it was mainly a volume and a safety problem. There's no sidewalks, neighborhood input, and those were the main reasons. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Jeff, I happened to watch at least one of those meetings, and those neighbors were very, very upset about what was happening. Not just with what was being built, but with the traffic. So that's a
Traffic
very
is-
good point.
Traffic is, it is the hot button in every new development, everyone.
Yeah.
Because even though I'm just going to say the projects we're reviewing don't generate, that project generated what 11 units there?
There were only 10 units.
10 units, so then
So
it
the
generated,
project itself was not a traffic generator.
incremental for probably 6 cars during rush hour, but the people were just you know,
They're
literally,
already over, yeah, they're already.
literally crying. It was like the straw that broke
It's
the
the
camel's
rush hour bypass from 95. Waze and Google Maps tells people to
Thank
get
you
off
for
19.
bringing that up, because that's an important component to this, to what we're looking at. Did you have a question, Chief? No?
I have a comment, but I'm going to reserve it.
You're gonna reserve it? Okay. All right, so,
Yeah, really quick, because I think we've covered all the bases. I just wanted to mention though that for this here, Kevin, was that, again, people very emotional and whatever, and if we were able to come up with a solution where, you know, the neighbors are relieved, we've solved the problem, that's why we're civil engineers, that's why we're members of the FTA.
appreciate that, thank you.
Bill, to make sure we have enough data to assess, will you put the black cats up 1 month prior to putting the bollards in?
Well, again, we already have, we've done a speed study last fall, and then the applicant has their own study, which I think was submitted this winter or early spring. So we have.
detailed traffic.
But having some current data as we run into it might
Oh,
be a good idea.
We could do that too, we could do that too.
Let's, let's have something that goes month 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Okay.
Usually you just do it before and
I
after.
was going to make a motion.
You just keep them up before and after.
Hi.
All right, so back to the commission for discussion. Emmeline?
I wanted to make a motion to approve the proposed demonstration project for the diagonal diverter at the intersection of Kings Drive and Kings Lane.
Thank you. I will second that. And I asked Emmeline to make that amendment because the agenda doesn't read demonstration. It almost reads like we're approving something final. So that'll help clarify what we're doing and what we're voting on.
Yes.
So I will second that amendment to change the language on item 7. Any discussion on that? Why don't we vote on that? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Abstentions? So the amendment passes 7-0, and now we have the amended item before us for final consideration, discussion, vote. Anything else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries 7-0. It was a great discussion by everyone. Thank you very much. This is going to be an interesting project. All right, we'll go to item number 8. To hear, consider, and act upon a proposed striping plan for Old Post Road. Mr. Hurley, you're up again.
All right, as you all may be aware, Old Post Road, or at least a good portion of it, has been paved. And per our Complete Streets ordinance, roads that are paved shall consider Complete Streets components. And so providing edge lines is certainly one of them. Crosswalk locations is another. Most of all Post Road have sidewalks. And also, whenever the town paves the road, we do handicap accessibility improvements and at least some repairs where necessary. So for this, what makes this one a little bit harder is, and we concentrated on it actually starts a little bit at Old Field Road and Reef Road. Then it goes to near the YMCA where Old Field and Old Post meet. And then it runs all around Old Post Road. And we figured if we're doing pavement markings, we might as well go all the way to the circle there by the Circle Diner. The issue that is the most complicated is that the Post Road roadway, the width varies tremendously. There are certain sections that are only 34 feet and 32 feet wide, and then there's other sections that are over 50 feet wide. And so to get consistent lane markings is rather tough. So what is being proposed here is to use pretty much a consistent 11-foot travel lane. And then I tried to break it up at least in sections. There are some flexibility where if you go over a long stretch, you can possibly make an 11-foot lane into a 10-foot lane rather than have it something abrupt. Or if the intersection is slightly skewed, you might be able to do that as well. But again, trying to keep things uniform. We didn't want to make lanes 15 feet and then down to 10 feet or something like that. So I don't know if it was part of the package. Yeah, if you go maybe one more. We started at basically Old Field near Old Post Road. That's between Reef Road and Old Post Road.
Should I go to which slide should I go?
Did this first one? This
So we'll
first
go
one?
with the
Yeah.
first one?
Yeah, I
Okay,
tried to
we
do
go
them in
with
order.
the first. So let's go in the order.
Sure,
and
yep.
then by- this one.
Well, yeah, there's a pool there, yep.
So let's go with this side, Old Field Road.
Right, Old Field Road, so, what's that, 18. This road was 36 and 37 feet wide at different sections. So if we do 11-foot travel lanes and 7-foot, we'll call them shoulder or buffer areas, they could be used as a bike lane, they could use as a parking lane. Right now, they are not established as an exclusive bike lane.
But there's room for either.
But there's room for either, and again, it's one of those where after a certain amount of time, we can always come back and do something different. As you know, converting a bike lane or converting a shoulder to a bike lane basically means the elimination of parking. Because a bike lane,
At that point.
yeah, if you designate it as a bike lane, you're not allowed to park there.
Emily?
I just wanted to ask, is there, I believe that this particular roadway is only marked for 25 mile per hour speed limit, right?
Yes.
So is there any kind of guidance, I guess, that the engineering department can provide as to what the lane width should be based on that posted mile per hour? Like, can you go down to 10?
Yeah, we can go down to 10. But
So that then
based
you
on the
have-
speed limit, yes, you can
Yeah.
go down to 9, absolute
Okay.
minimum,
Extreme,
because
yeah.
it's extreme
Yeah.
absolute minimum, 9 feet.
Build up at the striping guy.
Yeah, so so 25 miles per hour is too low, but the question is people are really driving at that speed, which is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, that's the other part.
And the lane widths also tie in with volumes and what type of traffic. If it's all car traffic, or the segment is only a quarter of a mile or so, like Mega said, you could do probably 9 or 10 without batting an eye. If this road, Old Post Road, has, I think, 11,000 cars a day on it, and there is occasional truck traffic, certainly we know about landscaping trucks, I always see them parked there as well. And so that's hence the 11. Another thing to consider is, let's just say, because somebody had brought it up, if we did 9-foot lanes here. But if you have 9-foot lane, travel lane, and you have a 9-foot shoulder lane, some drivers might think you got 4 lanes, right?
It's gotta look like that,
Yeah.
right?
And so that's another consideration. We try to keep the shoulder area 7 or 6 feet ideally.
Recognizable.
Right,
Right.
right. So that was that one. Then if we,
Wait, you're not gonna mess up with the parade route, are you?
well, actually, these are just white lines.
All right.
There's nothing, but
Making sure.
that's a good point because
Once a year.
years ago, I know, but believe it or not, there was a proposal one time to do landscaped islands or whatever, and the parade committee.
You were there?
Yep, exactly, Kevin. You might have been on the commission when that happened, yeah, so.
Did you have a question?
No, I was saying the parade's once a year, and that's, every traffic engineer says, do not plan for, the day after Thanksgiving or Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Because you over-engineer everything for that one
right.
aberrational event. So I know the parade is important, but, this is 364 days a year.
I'm just busting at
Yeah,
you.
no, but there'd be, the public comments would be there, definitely.
Yeah, Anthony.
Bill, so this part that we're talking about right now, this striping plan is consistent with the other side of the rest of Old Post Road?
Yeah, pretty
on the
much,
opposite
that's
side of
right,
it?
yeah, right, yeah, exactly, Oldfield, right, yep.
All right.
And then we hit the Old Post where it does the 90-degree turn there right by the YMCA. And again, this is one of those things, doing 11 and then the shoulder area, because the road width varies, 7 to 9. And so that was, yeah.
So isn't that the same back to your question where you were saying that people can misinterpret as.
Right, again, the visual of the at least 11 would make it wide, and at least that's the travel lane. And the 7 and 9, it varies, because there's gonna be spots that it's only 7, and then maybe there's an isolated spot or two that it's gonna be 9, but that varies. You wanna keep the travel lane consistent, and straight if you can. Now, there is, and that's the next page, and this could be anywhere where, this could be a 2-phaser if we wanted to, where you could have the white line, and if we find that people are using it as a passing lane or it's just too wide, we could do what and it was done at the, on Route 1, right by Veterans Park there, by North Benson and, in between North Benson and Beach. Yeah, they have a double white line, kind of as a buffer with a crosshatch. Right, exactly. So we could do that option. It'd be a little bit more in paint money, but that is an option there. And then from there, we could say, all right, we could go to 10 and a half feet to 11 feet. And then 7 and a half feet would have been the shoulder area or parking area, yeah.
Do you think we should do that now or give that a go later?
I wanted professional courtesy. I mean, I could come up with a decision. And I think it ties into what the rest of the road is going to be. So I don't mind coming back to that. And in my opinion, if we find that you do this from, say, here all the way to Beach Road or Benson, you know, then at least that's a long segment. What you don't want to do is do like a hopscotch or a leapfrog.
Got it.
Okay. All right. The next one, which kind of ties into the next request, there's a crosswalk there. Right by the town hall entrance here. And that's the one that, if anyone didn't know, that's where they're proposing the Pride crosswalk.
Yeah, that's our next item.
Yeah, right. So but I just wanted to, as we were going along, I just wanted to show that one. And then this is the tightest spot for Old Post Road. Right after that crosswalk, that's where the RRFB is, the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So now we're in front of the War Memorial, the First Church, the Town Hall, and near, just past St. Paul's. And it gets a lot tighter. So 11 feet, and then now the parking area by the War Memorial is only 6 feet. And so when we were talking about that double line or crosshatch, we would have to somehow lose it somewhere in the middle of the block. And that was the concern I had there. Now, it might be possible, going back, that maybe we stop it at Penfield Road or something like that, and at least do one block. But I was really hoping that we would be able to continue it. But this is a pinch point right here.
It's only 6 feet?
6 foot shoulder, 6 to 8, yeah. But at this location here, and I wrote a note, it's hard to see on here, but at the War Memorial, it's 34.5 feet wide.
I'm just wondering, like, overall, if you give more consideration to the 10-foot travel lane, just because.
That is one of the options.
We have it, like, where it gets a little tighter like this, it gives you a little more parking, so then when someone's parking there, they really are
Yeah, I mean.
in the parking lane and not over the line into the.
Could you narrow it just
travel
6
lane?
inches on each side or whatever, like just in that area? Or would you not want to mix and match the road widths when you get to a skinnier area by just a little bit?
Like I said, you could, from 10 to 11,
can mix and
over
match
a long
it.
period of time, it could be a gradual thing. Because again, after St. Paul's, it was, I'm going to say, like 38 feet.
Right.
So you just, the lines kind of come in, it would be gradual. And that is one of the things, because there was talk of, you can make it 12, or we could possibly do 10. But like I said before,
Right.
if you do it for a certain area, I'm okay with 10, but if we do 10, where now all of a sudden it looks like you have an 8, 9.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Right.
Now,
So in this area, the answer would be yes, we could go down to 10, Frank.
when you go to 6 feet, that's plenty for a bike lane? Is that plenty for a parking or?
6, it's a really tight,
Tight for
yeah.
parking?
You're probably gonna get cars parking over the line at
Yeah.
that point. That's why I was saying if you
You
could
want a
cheat
little
that
bit
a little more.
You want that extra 8
Just
or
so the
10
vehicle's not, once you establish the travel lane with the edge line, just so that.
You
parking-
get away with 7, 8 is
Eight for
certainly enough for parking, but
Yeah.
7 is the one. And again, for this area, there's gonna be areas where it is 8 feet. It was just right at the War Memorial, it got pinched in.
All right.
So, but yeah, by narrowing that down to 10, that will give you enough room there, yep.
All right.
And then, let's see, Old Post between Beach and Benson, this is the widest part. There's some parts that are 50 feet wide, so we go from 34 feet wide to 50 feet wide.
And there's your 11-foot roads, okay.
And there's the 11-foot. And again, on this one, there are a couple of things you can do. And there's 2 options, again, just for discussion. This one, you could do 11-foot lane or 10.5-foot lane. Then you could do a 5-foot bike lane. You could actually do a bike lane because the road's so wide. And then do the 7 to 8-foot parking lane. So you could actually,
You could do
you could do that, right. Or if that's the only spot where we have an exclusive bike lane, that might be too confusing. So then you go back to the next drawing where you'd have like 11-foot lane, or again, it could be 10 and a half, 10. You'd have your cross hatch,
Yeah, I see what you
which actually can vary between 2 and 6 feet and then you'd have an 8-foot shoulder for bike or parking. So that would make it look the same as the rest of the road with these cross hatches to kind of narrow it down. But this was the one case you could do an exclusive bike. This is also the area I walk it at least probably 3-4 times a week going in this direction. And there isn't a day that goes by where there's a moving van, contractor, landscaping trucks. And so that's why you wouldn't necessarily want to eliminate parking here because
too tight.
there. Okay, all right. So the next one is near the cemetery. And this is where, again, as you go from the Benson, North Benson and it's actually South Benson and Old Post Road. Another thing to consider is Mega is working with a consultant on South Benson traffic calming. And so there's some measures there that may affect that one intersection. So we're incorporating that as well in here. But by near the cemetery, it would be 11-foot travel lane and 7 to 10, because it varies, shoulder line. But then as you get right towards Belmont, it really shrinks down again. And so right after Belmont, we only have a 4.5 to 6 foot shoulder area, 11-foot travel lanes. So to Frank's point, one of the other options is on here, we could easily bring it down to 10 and then get that bike lane to be 5 to 6.5, 7 feet, and that would be enough for either parking or the bike lane. Right, exactly. So, and that's basically the schematic for it, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the presentation. Jeff, you got a question?
Well, it's more than a question. I reviewed this and kind of came up with some alternate suggestions.
Yeah, sure, here, we'll,
I just sent you the link, and give me the screen share.
Okay.
Well,
let me
before we
open-
do that, let's.
Find out from others, or?
Yeah, let's go back to the commission here and see what questions we have on what's been presented before us before we go off in a different direction. Questions on what Bill has presented as far as the painting, everything else he has put in front of us. Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
ask, what's the width? What's it on Reef Road now?
On Reef Road now, I'm gonna say it was
It's like a 10?
34 feet.
So is it it's a 10-foot aisle on either side, or is it a 9?
No, I think it's 10. I think it's 10.
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah,
Because, I mean,
10s and 7s. That's why you'll, and
Yeah.
So those are 7s, like in front of Bud's Deli?
yeah, that's why you
That's a
might see
7?
some tires over
So
the.
tight, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
But it slows down traffic.
That's why I would lean towards the 10-foot travel
Yeah.
lanes, because it might slow people down a little bit more, but
Yeah.
to your point, where it's extra wide, you gotta figure out something to do with the
Well,
extra
then
space.
that could be what the commission recommends.
Otherwise, it's gonna look like two
Yeah.
travel lanes.
Where we could say, we go to, between 10 and 11. And then if there's too much room, then we just do the crosshatch like the state did.
I like it.
And they kind of just did it for one block, they didn't carry it on all the way through. So
Yeah.
if the state did it, we can do it.
It's a much easier project when it's only one block. All right. Anything else from the commission on Bill's presentation at the moment? All right. Jeff, you have something?
Yeah. I was just gonna say,
Go ahead.
have the residents there said anything about the desire for the line striping, or no?
I have
Just
not
out of
heard
curiosity.
from anybody regarding this line striping or bicyclist problems. I have not heard anybody.
10 years ago, they thought shoulder lines would make it look like a highway. They were against it.
That's why I'm asking.
But the complete streets policy and the ordinance now says we have to consider it, and I think.
It'll be better with it, it'll slow vehicles down a little bit.
Should. Chief?
Has anybody considered the historical district?
That was my next
They
question.
don't have authorization over the right-of-way.
Yeah.
They only have authorization over private properties designated within the district.
And again, in interest of safety, I remember the very first zebra crosswalk that we put in, somebody complained I could see that 500 feet away, and I go, thank you for proving our point.
That's a great thing.
So, yeah.
So we probably might hear some chatter on that, is my suspicion. Bill, it'll come to your office.
Well, you've read Facebook, right? I'm a dictator,
For life?
authoritarian, so they say.
All right, so that's a great
Oh, with
question.
this.
Certainly something for us to think about. Okay.
So I took a look at your drawings and this didn't take much time, but it's, so what, I started with the NACDO Bikeway Design Guide, which is, that's the national standard that's recognized for bikeways. And one of the big differences between what you had and the NACDO is the minimum for protected bike lanes. So you had the bike lane and then parking, you had the bike lane in close. NACDO says create a buffer. So the best way to think about this is what kind of road would you want your elementary school kid to ride on, or your kid on a Razor scooter who doesn't have good cognitive thinking.
Shouldn't be on the road driving 45.
Right. That white strip there is the protection. So this is the NACDO, and this covers pretty much every condition. This is like the spec sheet that covers every condition. So the minimum width for a bike lane is 6 feet, 6.5 feet to 7 feet. Parking protected bike lanes must have a 3-foot buffer to accommodate a door swing. Because if any of you guys are cyclists, you can get killed. Somebody opens the door, you hit the door in the opposite direction. People die doing that. And then maintenance vehicles, you got to think about whether a vehicle can get in there. That's going to become an issue, and they need to be 4 to 6 feet. So this is the overall spec sheet. This shows almost every condition. So go to the next one. So this is Oldfield Road. I just went through Bill's, and I proposed an alternate. So I took his road widths here. So this is 11, 11, 7, and 7. So we're 36 to 37 feet from your drawing. And I put the bike lanes in here, and here's the math right here. So I just added it. I made the bike, this one's 6.5, and then I put a 2-foot buffer in, which would be a terrible looking flex post, but you can afford it. Ideally, you put some kind of planter in. That would be better, but we know planters are tricky. So I went through every one of Bill's, and I just kind of cranked these out. So here's the Oldfield near Post Road. You can go to the next one. So that would basically put this buffer in. Post Road at the Y, I did the widths, and I made a smaller 6-foot bike lane. You can put a parking lane in here, which is better if you're a cyclist. You want the parking lane you want this here, you want your bike here, you want a parked car here, you want the bike here, and maybe a little bit, that's the area. You wouldn't have a flex post in this one necessarily because you open the car door. And then the traffic over here, so you're protected. On the other side, you're not protected. You've just got the flex post here. So bike lane, flex post, lane, and I made them 10 feet because
Yeah, I like narrow roads.
yeah,
So
we know we can do
I'm
10.
biased.
So parking lane here
There's only parking on one side.
on one side.
Yeah, you'd have to eliminate it on one side.
Yeah, parking on one side.
Do people park on
Yeah.
Old Post Road a lot right now? I never see a lot of parking.
Now,
It
again,
varies, I think.
it's the contractors and the landscapers that are there all the time.
Okay.
Per
Yeah,
mansion,
you say so.
Do they park on?
In St. Paul's,
balls,
yep.
Okay.
There's a lot of parking.
That's why I said it varies like time of day. And
So-
Yeah, okay.
So keep going. One of these is wrong. Oh, yeah,
Cross right.
This is old, this one I suggested you narrow and maybe make a speed hump, like maybe make this raised right here. So you've got a wider buffer, so there's a narrower, because somebody described crossing these big roads as like, doing a home run. Like, you get to second base here, third base, and then home. You want to narrow the width for people to cross. So people aren't walking in a dangerous area. They're only crossing a 20-foot area, and this is 41 feet. So this cuts down the walking distance to half. And this is an intimidating road to cross. It's an intimidating road. So this is where the Pride crosswalk is, suggesting to put a bigger buffer in here. Maybe it's raised, but it's paint, and then bike lane. So go to the next one. And then this one is, it's basically, this one, I think this one's wrong. Oh yeah, it's 43, this was a duplicate. So go, oh no, I'm sorry, this one's right, go back.
Right, go back. Okay.
So yeah, this is
Was that the war memorial that you're pointing to
This is
right
town
now?
hall, yeah.
That's only 34 feet, not
Veteran-
41 though.
Veterans, yeah, 34 and a half.
Yeah, okay.
But you could get rid of, your two buffers, but it said, on your drawing, it said 34.5 to 41.
Yeah, because it varies, even that, within that block, it varies.
Yeah, it's-
6 to 8 feet
yeah.
varies, so you might lose the 2 feet, but, maybe you get rid of the parking right here. You got some space.
Across the street.
And then,
Yeah.
go ahead, the next one, this is the one that's, I guess this one's right. There's one here, I had a duplicate here.
Yeah, because you have planters in this one.
Yeah, but,
That's flexible.
it's the same width, planters and the bollards are the same, so keep going. It's the same concept, but basically I just worked it out for all your different slides, so keep going. Megan's got that. And so this is cemetery, it's just.
It's the same thing.
more
I
of the
think
same thing.
he's making a point of if you can really delineate with the bicycle lanes with these buffers in between, giving space for car doors
Yeah.
and narrowing the lines, so meaning we have enough width to accommodate all this.
These are Bill's drawings, I just took them.
Yeah, yeah. And the key point, basically what you're saying is instead of having parking on both sides, or the shoulder on both sides, narrow the lanes down and then create that. I just don't know how that will work with the neighborhood and because having landscaping
These are
park
honestly
across the
nice.
street.
These are
Yeah,
nice.
I
You
like
wanna
Talk to them before you did
But we
that.
all the issues. Okay.
Nicer is
Yeah,
subjective.
no, it's a.
They're nicer to you,
Thank
but
you.
some people might not
Thank
want
you for that. I'm gonna move this along, guys.
Yep, okay. Yeah, especially with the weather.
Mega.
Just a quick question, did we consider sightline issues when the people are parking and especially at the intersections when people are just making left turns and right turns?
Well,
But all these parkings on street.
legally, you can't park within 25 feet, and for the lanes, even if they're without the lanes, they could park there anyway. So parking wouldn't be affected by the lanes, but if it became a problem in a certain area, we'd always put a no parking or crosshatch.
Yeah, that's something.
You can break the, you'd
Yeah.
stop the edge line 30 feet short of the intersection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd
So we need that sign, we
Okay.
need that striping.
Jeff, thank you for that alternative view of the world. Appreciate that very much.
She's got that worked out.
It's significantly substantive to what we're talking about in change, so certainly not before us tonight, but certainly food for thought, consideration, in coordination between this commission, the Bike Safety Commission, police, and all other appropriate departments. So we're back to where we are to either further discuss or approve the painting project, item 7. Nope, number 8. Striping
Right.
plan for Old Post Road. Is there any other discussion as presented by Mr. Hurley in the engineering department? Mr. Becker?
I just want to make one point. I don't know if it actually technically needs to be within your approval or not, but it is something that we were discussing with DPW, is if you notice on the post road, the fog line, when you go over it, is actually grooved just a little bit down, adds a little hum, little way of notifying. We also actually believe it may actually create a little extra longevity in the paint and slightly below. Our intent is for this to do that on this and to try this on the.
Methodology here?
Yeah, so we've actually already had our streets and highways, supervisor look into it, talk to the
It
vendor.
almost acts as a mini rumble strip.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's on the state roads right now, on the new
Yeah.
striping, that's
Yeah.
on the state road. This
Yeah.
is why they make that little hum, that noise, like rumbles.
All right.
Right, are we ready for a motion?
We
Yes.
are as soon as everyone's finished discussing. So I think, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I wonder whether I can make a motion, if you will indulge me, to agree with the proposed striping plan, but I think we should just go down to 10 foot for all of it. And then that'll give you more flexibility and room for changes in the future.
I
That
feel
was
like,
a question, if you don't mind asking Jeff, is if he had 10-foot lanes there, for the most part, if we go with the 10-foot lanes, if whatever, you can always, like I said, this could be a possible phase tour.
Right.
Where you could do the buffer lines or similar to the Jeff.
Yeah, I think
At least it gets the thing started, it establishes
Oh, it's a
stuff.
great idea because it keeps us 10 consistent. It's 10 from the middle in either side, and therefore it leaves options open for whatever they may be down the road without undoing something that we're talking about doing. So I would second that motion to add 10 with 10-foot lanes.
Revised from, it's a 10-foot travel, to approve 10-foot travel lanes, that's how I
As
would.
part of this plan, yeah. Thank you for that. Any discussion on that motion to change it to 10 foot? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, that carries. We're before us with an amended item 8, 10 feet roads. Any further discussion on item 8?
Just a quick point of clarification. With this approval here, when does the decision for bike lanes or no bike lanes and no parking or parking, when does that happen?
It's a great question. I do not know the answer. I think it needs to be an administrative coordination between commissions and departments. So that's all I know at the moment.
The way that we've approved.
We left it open that we could look at
The way we've
different
approved
things.
it, right now, they can use the shoulder as a bike lane or a bike route, but you haven't eliminated parking, which
Right.
obviously could be a whole
That's
nother
that's
issue.
the conundrum.
But at some point, we may have to make that
It's a shoulder
determination and.
Yeah.
that you're allowed to park in. For doing
I mean,
it.
I would say too, I mean, you know, as somebody who has cycled in kind of similar environments, if the miles per hour are slow enough, I don't think a cyclist feels intimidated about interjecting themselves into the traffic at that level of speed if they don't have the shoulder available to them.
Good point. Anything else? All right, item 8 as amended is before us for consideration and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We carry 7-0. So we'll go to item number 9. To hear, consider, and act upon a proposed Pride crosswalk at Old Post Road near St. Paul's Church. And I wanted to, if the first selectman wanted to comment on this, this is a recommendation before us to Pride paint that sidewalk across the street to St. Paul's. If anyone has any comments, I wanted to defer to the administration, if you have any words of wisdom or support.
Well, it's very simple. Make people happy, make people proud, and it's cheap. So what could go wrong, you know?
What could go wrong?
I think we've had a lot of requests for this. It's not a big ask, and talked to some other towns in Norwalk and West Hartford, and they've done it, and it's been a nice thing. I think the people that I've met think it's been very nice. And Westport, I think they used paint. So each year they'll go out and they'll have a repainting party. But what I think what's more durable is the kind of the plastic adhesive material that I guess you apply heat.
It's a more permanent.
It's more permanent. Yeah. And I think it would be nice, and we wouldn't be leading the way on this. And had some requests. Actually, Curtis Farr came in and asked us to consider. Reverend Curtis Farr at St. Paul's asked us to consider this.
Thank you very much for those supportive comments. I think it's a great idea as well, and certainly something that's going to be well appreciated by our community. So thanks for thinking of it and bringing it to us. Comments?
If I may, David or Bill, have you seen, this is the type that you want? I just want to make sure.
I think,
There's longitudinal, there's different shapes and
I
sizes.
think Bucky has already ordered the
I
materials.
think we'll let you guys figure that
I just
part
want to
I
make.
was gonna ask, is that like the actual design that you're using, or?
I'm not
That-
sure. I
that
think I
was
talked to
one- We had a
Eli.
couple of items that were put in front of us we had talked about the different ways. That was the most, like sort of a typical crosswalk, and then with the
yeah,
sidebars
with
to
the-
it. We thought if we did something different, sometimes.
The key point is you need the two longitudinal
Exactly.
lines to meet the MUTCD, or you do every other one as a zebra. But this is the one that I think was selected.
I trust you to do it right. Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Just make a motion.
Make a motion to accept? I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? That motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. First Selectman, for bringing that to us. Item number 10, to hear, consider, and act upon the proposed pavement markings for Round Hill Road. So I'm not sure, am I going to go to Mr. Becker on this, or Bill Hurley, or Mega?
Hurley.
Raise your hand and take us away.
All right, on this one here, this one, at least it didn't vary. Mainly Round Hill Road, we have completed the sidewalk there on Round Hill Road. The neighborhood was very patient, but every time I go by, I see 3-4 people using it. So, as I was mentioning before, there's a sense of pride when you construct something and people are using it in a safer manner than was before. The road is mainly 33 feet wide, so on this one, again, I had proposed 10.5 feet on the travel lanes, which would give the bike lane or shoulder 6 to 7.5. If the authority wants to go down to 10, then that would make the bike lane or shoulder 6.5 to 8 feet. And that would be the only change that we were going. On this one, it was strictly double yellow line and then a single shoulder line to resemble a bike or shoulder lane.
So are you designating it a bike lane or no?
No, I think right now it would not be a bike lane, because I have seen people park.
Shoulder combo,
Yeah.
use it
Okay.
safely either way. Okay.
And the miles per hour on this roadway is 25?
25.
25?
All are 25.
With 25, and the volume certainly a lot less than the post road, going down to a 10-foot travel lane is no issue. I'm just basing that from
Based on
our
the previous
discussion.
conversation.
Right. And again, in an email that I sent, it is, again, it could be anywhere from 10 to 11 with these types of things, getting the feedback, try with the smaller travel lanes and see.
But you're comfortable with what you've presented from a design?
Oh, yeah, it would just, somebody should make a motion to change the 10.5 to 10. That's all.
You wanna go, Frank?
Sure.
Go.
I'll make a motion to approve it with the modification of the 10-foot travel lanes.
I'll second that. Discussion on the amendment to go to 10 feet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, we're in front of us as amended to 10 feet. Additional discussion on the item 10 as amended from Mr. Hurley. Anyone else, anything from the administration on this? You're good?
Yeah, same, you know, we're,
It's the same.
with the grooving, we're looking
Okay.
at doing things
Doing
like
that
that.
too.
Yeah.
All right, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, we carry 7-0. All right, item 11, old business. I don't know of anything that qualifies under old business at the moment, but I left it on there for conversation.
Do we have a status on the New England Avenue discussion we had a couple months ago?
Good question, I don't know the answer, but we can,
Do we know that?
let's make a note to get an update.
Yes.
Speed
Well,
bump.
just so you know, I'll tell you, I visited it 3 or 4 times since our last meeting. I stopped and talked to some neighbors, and it's a tough situation, you know, with the hill. It gets narrow up there. There's people parking on both sides. That is, and then when you look at the 3 parallel streets and the perpendicular ones at the top and at the bottom, it looks like something that needs a global view. I don't know the answer, and I don't know whether you guys have spent any more time out there or with the neighbors, but we need to put our heads together and decide what we think is the best approach to take a look at not just that street, but I think the peripheral streets.
Yeah, whatever you do on one, although the one's a through street, the others are very similar.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Mike. Thanks for bringing it up.
Megan, do you remember, do you recall?
What do you guys think?
Well, this data analysis was the speeds were 21, 20. The speeding is not an issue there. So the truck were not an issue. There were only 2% of some trucks that crossed that roadway. That was not an issue. Speeding was not an issue. Now comes this cut-through traffic. I think her main concern was, one, that there is a units coming, the new development that is coming. That was one of the concerns from one of the neighbors.
Sure.
That will create more traffic. For that, we can ask a traffic impact report from the consultants, whoever the developer is, to analyze how that is going to impact. So that's what her concern was. Another was the volumes are high, but it could be a cut-through traffic. That's only I can only come up with a cut-through traffic problem, not in terms of other traffic calming measures that I thought of, because the data is not supportive of, for reducing the speed. The volume cut-through traffic, that we can look into. But I will also have to have what the developer is proposing, because one of the concern is that it's going to increase the volume, it's going to keep the same, or it's going to make any difference.
Right.
And cut through traffic, as I said, it's not easy because you have to analyze that whole grid in order to balance that volume, which we already discussed in the last meeting. It's not that easy approach to handle the volume.
It sounds like one of those things, I mean, even though there's not data to support speeding or not data to support volume, there may not be data to support this or that. It just sounds like one of those projects that might be a little bit more gut than data-driven. I mean, I don't know what the engineering, obstacles could be, but it's definitely a problem. And, I don't think the answer to them, I'm not saying this is the answer we're going to give them, is that you don't have a speeding problem, you don't have a traffic problem, you don't have a this problem, so there's nothing we can think about doing. I just don't know if that's going to be acceptable to that neighborhood. And so I think we're going to have to go outside the data box to kind of think about what we can do in that area. I don't know the answer, but I don't think telling them it's okay is going to be the outcome that's, proper.
I didn't understand what the problem, because it was a multiple facet problem for her with the resident. Was a development coming? It's a sun glaring issue. It's a vertical topography issue, which is completely out of control. I cannot change the topography.
Yeah, I'm not critical of that.
Multi-million-dollar project to do the add grade intersection. So it was a signage issue, it was a no parking issue, it was a sun issue, I cannot hold the sun. And then the topography issue, and then now is a development issue, now comes the volume issue, speeding issue.
Yeah, it's kind of death by a thousand cuts. There's not
that
one
was
thing
hard
that's making it
purpose.
bad. Yeah.
So now if I have to go and improve this whole street, so from which perspective, I can only think maybe the volume with the cut through, maybe we can decrease the cut through. No parking, I think Chief Calamitous already spoke in the meeting about the no parking, historically, why it was allowed and why it's not allowed. So that was very made clear in the last meeting. If anything has to do further, I will leave it up to the police department to increase enforcement of the no parking, which is blocking the sight lane. Sun is out of my control. And the volume.
Can't move the sun?
So what do you guys want to do? I mean,
So there's
we need
seven
to-
issues,
we
yeah.
need to further consider this. I just don't know the proper angle or approach to take. That's my conundrum on this.
I mean, I think we had kind of talked about having an ongoing list of areas that we revisit. And I think that's a good practice where we know that we have areas of concern, but areas that we won't be able to implement projects in an immediate way.
Right.
So I think that that's definitely whether we do that quarterly, and it's something that we put in our agenda like 2 times a year or quarterly to just kind of review those areas of concern. But I think we probably need a longer ramp up to just kind of look at that and determine what are those pain points, and are there certain times of year that they happen, for example? Are there variations in what those pain points are? I think that would help us to just kind of keep an eye on it, because we know that it's something that we potentially should address, but we might not have the answer today.
Certainly, yes.
Some of my preliminary comments, I haven't had a chance to measure the road width, but doing something similar that we've done on Old Post Road. You have the 48 for New England Avenue, is 48?
That's the right of way.
Oh, no, I'm talking pavement.
It's not 48, it's probably 30-something, 38,
It's
36.
narrow, actually.
It's, yeah,
Because it's
26, if it's 30, there's a big difference. That's what
Well, can we do some
We do,
legwork or some
well,
homework so that we
if we
can?
did 10-foot travel lanes, and then if there was enough room for the shoulder, that's where people would park, then at least people, if they stayed with it, because we noticed this with Villa Avenue, when we did the pavement markings, it now guides the people to where to go.
Right.
So then, even though they can't see the car on the other side of the hill, if they're in their travel lane, they're not going to hit the car. That's one aspect. The other aspect is the MUTCD has a sign that says Hill blocks view. I don't know if a sign's going to help. I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious. I don't think you really need a sign to tell you that you can't see on the other side of the hill. But that would have been the other
Well,
thing.
maybe there are some
I think-
baby steps we can take
Yeah, with the lines.
while we're considering other things, just to, not to appease people, but to address what certainly are some concerns of significance.
Well, I'll also pose out, I mean, you don't see it too often, but sometimes if the road is narrower, you could just do the edge lines without the yellow line. I don't know if you've done that in Stamford or not, or I've seen it done
I haven't,
in
but I've seen it
rural
done.
areas.
Yeah.
And then, so then you're kind of, again, guiding it, but then, you know, they got to kind of stay in their lane. So that's why I was thinking the pavement markings at least would prevent anybody from hitting a vehicle that's parked on the other side of the hill.
Is this a pedestrian? I thought this was primarily a pedestrian.
There is a pedestrian, well, the pedestrian problem is they're afraid to walk.
Yeah,
You're not gonna hit them if they're not walking, because they're so damn scared.
It's a tight
I mean,
fit.
is there sidewalks there or no?
There's no sidewalks, there's people with strollers and walking around out there and
There's cars on both sides.
And I'm sure they're
Top of the hill.
hiding their driveways
maybe
too.
it doesn't violate any of the damn standards, but I'm gonna tell you,
It's not safe.
that is an area that is just gonna. Treacherous, and it's gonna get worse, and we ought to be more proactive than reactive. That's just the point I'm trying to.
Well, with the, again, the shoulder lines, you know, like we say, instead of a bike lane, they could be a walking path if there's nobody parked there. And at least it kind of,
When you put fog lines in on Churchill, it made a huge difference.
okay.
City Bill for a second.
I'm trying to remember, did the neighbors bring this to you guys at a meeting?
A neighbor brought a parking issue.
Right, and it was Metro's, the Fairfield BlackRock people using the train station park on New England Avenue.
There's some of that, but what's really
That was a
happening
while
is.
back, yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think that's so dramatic because there's not that much overflow right now. But
Yeah.
what's happening is folks are cutting
Cutting through.
through to
Right.
get to the train station, and as you build up.
and there's a
that
hill,
College
right?
Drive- oh, the hill's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
12% slope.
It's kind of like blind.
Yeah, like it's line of sight, you
Yeah,
know.
and there's
down the
three,
hill.
three or four roads there that
Yeah,
all have the
that are-
same more or less issue.
Yeah.
And it was people
But the
walking
Wetland is
with
the main
baby
cut
carriages.
through. That's the one that has the light on one side.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's blind when you come down to Commerce too.
Yeah, it
because
is.
it's- You can't see right or left.
Yeah.
Can we maybe add this to like a lot zip list to do sidewalks? Like up and over sidewalks? No?
Trees are pretty close.
Yeah, it will be hard, so.
You would be in the right of way of people's yards, but I mean, one of the possibilities, if you go up there and walk, and
Or
I
can you
encourage
do
you,
like sidewalk on one side?
maybe, you could maybe do, if you took down some trees on, I think it would be the north side, for instance, and put a sidewalk on the north side, which would be a pretty big project, you wouldn't have room for parking on both sides of the street thereafter. You would probably, but it's pretty dicey. So why don't we do this? Why don't we ask everyone to go spend some time out there? And if it's not too aggressive, can we put something on the agenda just for discussion for next month? And between now and then, if you guys can rally your brains on if there are any many short steps we can take to start thinking about it and addressing it, and whether they're substantive or not, let's find out so that we can at least have a further discussion. And if there's something we can do, like the Churchill thing, maybe that's something, maybe it's not. I just don't know, but someone is gonna get clipped up there with the stroller. Mike's right.
My one last question slash thought was, did we look at the crash history there too? I forget if.
Okay, no,
Well, if we didn't, maybe we
No,
could take a
I
look
did
at
not,
that
I
too.
did not look at the crash history, no.
Yeah, let's gather some data, let's
I-
do some site visits.
I collected all the data from other data,
Yeah.
but only the crash history. We hired Connecticut Counts for this reason, so collect
Gotcha.
their speed, class, volumes, and everything, so that supports. Because her primary concern was, as I said, the multi-problems, and only I could see was cut-through traffic and parking problems.
He
That was
says,
the main.
Captain thinks it's 4 and 3 years, so
Okay.
I don't think any of these individual data points are gonna trip,
Like a big, yeah.
You strictly go by the
but when you
data.
throw them all in the bucket, and it's dicey, man.
Yeah.
It just is.
I'm sure there's some low-cost measure we can do to improve the situation.
Just give it a shot. Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no new business other than, oh, yes, ma'am.
We had, a few of us had done a walk with Connecticut DOT on the Post Road. And as a result of that, MetroCog had put together an application to DOT to do a roadway safety audit. And I forgot to add it to the agenda for this meeting, but just if I don't know if we want to talk about it. I think it has to be approved by the
I don't know if it does.
MetroCog was asking us to have it signed
Okay.
by Kevin, I think, so I don't know if we should
Oh,
discuss it. That's just what I recall in the
Motion to put
application.
it on, unanimous consent to put it on the agenda.
yeah, let's stick it on the July agenda. If we can circulate it prior, we'll figure it
Unless
out.
it's time sensitive? Do you know if it's time
I
sensitive?
don't think so.
I think there's a rolling clock on those.
I think there's a rolling
Okay.
clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so let's stick it on July.
Definitely a good thing.
MetroCog report.
Well,
Um,
everything's recorded, so.
And we have next Thursday, 12 o'clock, we'll get an agenda out with the one item. Thank you guys for being flexible on that.
If I may, there was one other item that Jeremy from the police department, Drew, had mentioned. And this, I think, was one of those we were talking about in the very beginning, a quick approval, because you could put it in easily because it meets the MUTCD as a supplemental sign. At Judson and East Paulding, at Beach Road, we call it, right after the island or the Parrot Island, where you go, it's in between two stop signs, but that area there is very congested. A lot of people go across Judson to get to the school using East Paulding. And in talking to one of the people who approached the police department, he had mentioned that, I don't know, a four-way stop, because there'd be three of them in a row, but even just a sign that says cross traffic does not stop, supplemental, underneath the stop sign at Judson and at East Paulding would help a lot, so that it kind of alerts the driver to make sure they look both ways. And that is an MUTCD approved stop sign. So I think that's a quick approval, because I'm not even sure if we need to formally approve it, but based on some of the advice, especially Hector, and I think the chief agrees too, just to, anytime you do signs, pavement markings, or signals, at least to have the vote of the commission or the.
So send an email out, and we'll stick it on the July agenda. I don't want to add it at this hour to this agenda
okay.
and vote on it. I don't think that's a great form.
Okay, that's why I wanted to ask if it was.
Why don't we stick it on the July agenda, and
Is that okay with you, Chief? Because I know it was a safety issue. I just don't want.
And I know that the administration's working with an internal team to help streamline, or not streamline, to help
You're talking to a couple of people on
all of
the-
the inputs that they're getting and we're getting, to better understand who does what, who approves what has to go there, what has to go there. So there's still some learning curve on that. So we should, not knowing that shouldn't come to us, why don't we bring it to us?
Which any signs, signals, or pavement markings have to be approved by
Has to be
the
legal traffic
yeah.
authority. and
Except if they're replacements.
Yes, as per
Right,
the
right.
legal
These were new
rules
signs,
too.
right. Okay, very good. I just wanted to highlight that one. Sure.
So there's going to be a walk audit in the Fairfield Black Rock train station area that's happening on Tuesday between 10:30 and 12. Just an open invitation if anybody wants to attend. I think there's going to be folks from the Bike Ped Committee who are participating, as well as some others. But it's a route that basically goes around the area around Fairfield Black Rock, just as a walk audit, I guess it's.
With DOT?
It's actually with Desegregate Connecticut, who asked to come and do it around that station. So I think it's per,
ARP.
yeah, ARB.
Yeah.
ARP sets a standard for these walk audits, and they're administering it, so it's not,
Okay.
you're not going to be converted into some sort of radical vegetarian.
Can you circulate a no?
I can, yep.
Please, thank
Yep.
you. All right,
That's it,
at
sorry.
this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.